What's going on, guys? It's Cimo, and today I'm bringing to you my Pendulum Magician Deck Profile. Now, we've come full circle. We started off with an introduction to Pendulum Magicians, we've done a Pendulum Magician combo tutorial, and we've also discussed how to beat Pendulum Magician. But to wrap things up for this Pendulum Magician extravaganza, I figured it makes the most sense to show you my build, or at least a build that you can use as a template for something that you want to come up with on your own. The deck's really fun, there's a lot of cool things you can do, and I'm going to show you my build, but also some other options you might want to consider moving forward. Now, this build is going to be pre-Circuit Break. I might modify it once Circuit Break is released because there are some new cards that are going to come out, but that's going to be for a later day. Without further ado, let's just get on over here and get right into it. So, Pendulum Magicians, the deck is really fun. There's a lot of cool things you can do. And there's just so much we need to discuss that I'm just going to go ahead and get right into it. So, starting off, it should come as no surprise that we're playing 3 copies of Joker. Joker pretty much just searches everything in the deck, and you want to just pretty much see this. It enables a ton of combos. It's easy +1. There's no reason you really shouldn't want to play 3 Joker, at least in my opinion. Then we've got 3 copies of Wisdom Eye. Wisdom Eye is really strong just because it enables a ton of your cards, and also it just allows you to fix your scales. This card just is so pivotal in so many different situations. You always want to see Wisdom Eye. It's not as good as it used to be because now, you know, we can't do double Wisdom Eye and just spam the board with Pendulum monsters, but it's still a really good card nonetheless. Then we're maxing out on Harmonizing Magician as well. Harmonizing Magician, as you guys know from the other videos, is just a +1. It's a 1-card synchro, even though you need a Pendulum summon it onto the board, but the plays that you can do with Harmonizing Magician are absolutely incredible, and it's definitely something that I feel that you should max out on. Moving on, we also have Double Iris Magician at 3. Double Iris Magician at 3 I feel is crucial because you want to get to Time Pendulum Graph as much as possible, because in a lot of ways, Time Pendulum Graph is essentially your win condition, and so by having maxed out on Double Iris Magician, you're maxing out on the possibilities that you're going to have cards to be able to pop Double Iris Magician to get you to that Time Pendulum Graph. And even if you don't combo it with Time Star Magician, having Time Pendulum Graph just puts up another wall of defenses during your opponent's turn. So I feel that that's really, really crucial. Next, of course, we're maxing out on Purple Poison Magician. Purple Poison is just so good because it just, not only does it have tricks in battle, but it's another card that just allows you to pop so many problematic cards that the deck has. You know, you've got stuff like all the floodgates that people are going to side in for you games 2 and 3, like Anti-Spell Fragrance and Unending Nightmare, and all these different things. But if you don't have to worry about that, at the very least, you can just pop anything on the board, and it's essentially free because then you can Pendulum Summon it back and just do a ton of things. It's also a low scale. That's also something you want to keep in mind because you're going to be wanting to either go to this or Oath Dragon a majority of the time for your low scale, so this is pretty much your go-to if you're not trying to recur resources with Oath Dragon, but recurring is still incredibly strong. This is just like free removal, essentially, at the expense of putting something in your Pendulum Zone. Now, one thing I'm maxing out on that a lot of people might not is Black Fang. And the reason I'm maxing out on Black Fang is for a couple reasons. So first off, I feel that I want to have as many potential combo pieces in my hand as possible, and that means just having a ton of Magicians that I can use as fodder for all the combos at this deck's disposal. But one thing that's very significant about Black Fang Magician at 3 is that there is a 2-card OTK that this deck is capable of doing, but it requires you to use 3 Black Fang Magicians in order to do it. Now, obviously, is that ideal? Well, you have a 31% chance to pull off the OTK if you have the right 2 cards in your opening hand, so just having to play 3 Black Fang Magicians, obviously, you know, you could play 2 and probably get away with it, but having that OTK handy is just something really nice. I mean, you could probably be controlling the game anyway regardless, but just being able to finish off your opponent if the circumstances arise and you actually have the ability to do so, that's something I don't think any one of us would complain about. Now, moving on to 2-ofs, 2 copies of Performapal Pendulum Sorcerer. This is, I would say, pretty standard for the deck because you just want to have these because it's searchable by Joker, and then you're using this to pop your Double Iris or any of your scales that you see fit that you want to pop. It also searches you another copy of Joker for your next turn, which is incredibly powerful. Just a very good, solid play enabler. I don't think it's worth maxing out on because it's searchable, and you only really need it in circumstances where popping is ideal in your situation. So having the 2 is nice because you'll get it often enough, and if you really need it, you can just search it with Joker. Now, moving on to one-ofs, I'm only playing one Astrograph Sorcerer and one Oath Dragon Magician. So the reason I'm playing one Astrograph Sorcerer is because Astrograph Sorcerer is searchable via Wavering Eyes, and so when you use the Wavering Eyes combo, if you search Astrograph Sorcerer off of Wavering Eyes, you're actually able to special summon that Astrograph Sorcerer. So that's something important to note. So I feel like if I want Astrograph Sorcerer, it's searchable via Wavering Eyes, so I don't really need to max out on it. The card is good because it can potentially feed you more conditional +1s, but it's too conditional to the point where I feel like maxing out on it is really worth it. Now, in your build, you might feel that you want to play multiples, and that's totally fine. I personally just don't feel that I like playing multiples. It's just a card that I feel one of is kind of, it's tutorable when you need it, and if you don't really want to see it. I'd rather just have a ton more Pendulum Magicians in my hand. And then Oath Dragon Magician is a solid one of, because that's like the card you're always going to be wanting to use to recur monsters back to your hand from the Pendulum Zone. It's nice because you can move stuff from your extra monster zone to your hand rather than having to place it in the extra monster zone when you Pendulum Summon, and that frees up that space and allows you to extend your place further than if you were locked into the extra monster zone in that fashion. So he's a very solid card. He's also a low scale, very, very beneficial. And then rounding out the monster lineup, we have 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. This is pretty much mandatory because it stops Wavering Eyes for one, but this card just stops everything in general, and it's like, it's such a powerful card. Like, it hits Pendulum Call, it hits so many powerful things that really just stop your opponent in the right situation that you really want to max out on it. And speaking of Max C, if you guys notice, I'm actually not playing that in this build because I feel that Max C at the current moment is not something that's really worth running, because the meta, like Pendulum Magicians will just stop. True Draco, it doesn't really do a whole lot. It's a card that I would maybe probably side if anything, but once Circuit Break hits and Spirals become a big threat, you're probably going to want to put this in the main deck, but for the time being, I have this just delegated to the side deck. But again, that's my personal preference, and it's something that you might want to main yourself for the time being, but definitely post Circuit Break, you're going to want this in the main deck. Now, moving on, we have 3 copies of Duelist Alliance. You'll have to excuse the one proxy here because I couldn't find my other one to save my life, but this card's incredible because it just allows you to tutor for so many different cards in the deck. You can get Pendulum Sorcerer, you can get your Time Pendulum Graph, your Star Pendulum Graph, a lot of good solid cards you can get off Duelist Alliance. Just, it's absolutely phenomenal. You have to run it at 3. Then you've got 3 Wavering Eyes. This is something that a lot of people go back and forth about because it's really good in the mirror match, but then against everything else, it's not that good, and you kind of take a minus when you play it. But at the current state of the meta, a lot of people are playing Pendulum Magicians, and if you don't have this card in the mirror match, you're at a severe disadvantage. So I think it's worth running for that reason alone. When we move post Circuit Break, it might be something you want to side instead of main deck, but overall, it's still an incredible card. Then we got 3 copies of Potted Desires. Some people play 2, but I personally believe that with this combo deck, you want to see as many cards as possible, and that means you want to draw as many cards as you possibly can. I don't think 3 is too many. Honestly, the times that, it does burn you, it's way outnumbered by the number of times that it just makes your plays even better, and you want to see it as often as possible. Another weird selection here, I'm actually playing 3 copies of Cosmic Cyclone in the main, and there's a lot of good reasons for this. So, in the mirror match, your biggest threat is Time Pendulum Graph, so Cosmic Cyclone kind of fixes that problem because you can just snipe it off with Cosmic Cyclone and pretty much go on with your play because you've taken out their only card that really disrupts you. It can hit Pendulum Scales without them triggering their effects. It can hit True Draco cards like Diagram or even any of the True Draco spell or traps without triggering their effects because they won't be sent to the graveyard. There's a lot of versatility and flexibility with Cosmic Cyclone, and I really like it at the moment in the main deck for Pendulum Magician, solely because you can just do so many different things, and it allows you to kind of remove your opponent's threats before you go on and pretty much proceed with your plays. It also acts defensively, in addition to your Time Pendulum Graph. Time Pendulum Graph can hit something off the board, and you still have Cosmic Cyclone to hit something else. So, at the very least, even if you have it in your opening hand, you can just set it and you've got it for one of your opponent's threats on their turn. Then rounding out the spells, we're just playing 2 Star Pendulum Graph. I don't think 3 is necessary in this build. It's highly searchable. If you have it, it's fantastic, but it's not mandatory, and you do need cards to trigger it, so I think 2 is perfectly ideal. And then also for the traps, we're just playing 2 Time Pendulum Graph. I'm playing 2 of these because we are playing Potted Desires. We want to make sure that if we do Desires, and let's say we haven't gotten Time Pendulum Graph to our hand yet or anything, we want to make sure that we don't banish, our only lone copy. And plus, if you do manage to have 2 copies of Time Pendulum Graph going, I mean, that's not terrible, but obviously it's only a once per turn, so it's not the best thing, but you want to just make sure you have it. That's pretty much the underlying purpose of playing 2. Especially if you're playing Desires. If you're not playing Desires, you can probably get away with only playing 1, but I still think you want to see it, and so playing that second copy is worth it. If you notice as well, I'm not playing Pendulum Call because I feel Pendulum Call just loses too hard to Ash Blossom. Again, it's a card you could also include in your build, but I personally am not playing it. So that's it for the main deck. Moving on to the extra deck, we have Supreme King Dragon Starving Venom. This is amazing because not only if one of your monsters gets set by like Floodgate Trap Hole, you can still fusion summon this card. That's really strong, but it allows you to copy things and do some really crazy shenanigans. This is supposed to be a Beals. I cannot find my Beals anywhere to save my life, so I just threw a random card in here. But Beals is like the cornerstone of this deck because it just pretty much auto wins the True Draco matchups. You definitely want to play Beals. One Enlightenment Paladin because you can add Wavering Eyes back in the mirror and it's really easy to make. His other effect in battle is also pretty strong as well. One Ignister's good because Ignister just removes threats, pretty simple. Omega, it's just Omega, like I really don't have to say much about that. And then rounding out the synchros is Stardust Dragon. Now Stardust Dragon is really cool because it allows you to pretty much negate your opponent's Wavering Eyes and a bunch of their destruction effects, and that's really, really powerful. So I think Stardust Dragon, especially if you're focusing on Pendulum Mirror matches, is something you might really want to consider in here. Obviously, again, these are my personal preferences, but just a cool little trick that you can do with the deck. Moving on to XCs, we're playing 2 copies of Time Star Magician. I like 2 because you can get away with playing 1, but having that second copy is nice because it kind of allows you, it gives your deck some recovery if you get like board wiped or anything like that, so that's really, really strong. Abyss Dweller is good just for the True Draco match, ABC, things that are just graveyard reliant. Karen Gorgon's cool because you can redirect stuff like Time Pendulum Graph in the mirror match and then make it so that it's not going to hit your card, so that's a really strong card. It's also good in a bunch of other applications as well. Then we're playing Utopia and Utopia the Lightning because these cards just kind of out everything when it comes to battle, so that's really strong. We have Trapeze Magician, which not only basically auto wins your Trickstar matchup, but allows you to go in for OTKs because of its double attack effect. Tornado Dragon strong just because hitting back row is always really good. And last but not least, we have a Sloan Decode Talker. Now, Decode Talker is good because it opens up our extra monster zones, but it's also what we need for the 2-card OTK as well. And it's just a nice 15th card to round everything out. So, guys, that's it for the deck profile. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think about this deck profile and if any changes that you might make or what personal preference you like when it comes to the deck. I'd really like to hear your thoughts. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. Be sure to like the video as always, subscribe to the channel for more amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content, and if you really found this video helpful, consider backing me on Patreon, because just by pledging only $1 a month, you're investing in my ability to continue bringing you amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content. So thanks so much again, and we'll see you next time.